Mr. Sai Chandravadhan writes under the pen name Vadhan, a moniker coined by his folks at home. Vadhan is a prolific reader, he turned to writing a few years ago. His first published book is Shatru, a prequel to his yet unpublished fantasy series. His second book, Agniputr, When Agni First Spoke, took the reading community by a storm. Hailed as one of the best multi-genre thrillers by leading national newspapers, literary platforms, critics, and top-end bloggers. Vadhan is a lawyer by qualification and manages regulatory risk practice in a very large multinational consulting firm. Hailing from Eluru in Andhra Pradesh, born and brought up in Chennai, Tamil Nadu, living in Delhi for more than 12 years and currently in Mumbai. He
Okay,
has traveled.
that's a small change there. I've come back to Delhi.
Okay, sure, sir. So he is now back to Delhi. He has traveled extensively across the world in his professional capacity, having worked for clients in Europe, Middle East, Africa, North America, Asia Pacific, and Southeast Asia. His writing encapsulates the essence of his travels and understanding of different cultures. So I would like to say that, as I would like to quote George Eliot, that it is never too late to be what you might have been, and we have the example right in front of us. So is living his dream of impacting people in a creative way and has proved that it's never too late to realize your dreams. So, so would you like to say something?
Sure. Would love to say that I'm very happy to be here. Very happy indeed to be part of this initiative, and I'm very proud of the fact that young people are doing this, and that too for students. And I think it's a brilliant initiative. I have been fortunate enough in my life to have gone through uh, a lot of iterations in terms of my career, in terms of my travels, and in terms of what I wanted to do. So there are two things here. One is what I do for a living, which is practicing regulatory compliance, and what I do for my passion, which is writing. And I'm equally interested in both of them. And I'm very happy today to be here to share my experiences as an author, and also to interact with you guys and have a great time. So that's the whole point of this, that we should all have a great time and be able to share each other's viewpoints, and that's usually very good for everybody. So
Yeah,
thank
so
you for inviting.
it's completely our pleasure to have you here with us to talk with us about your writings and your experiences as a whole. So should we start with the questions?
Absolutely, I'm ready. Shoot.
Yeah, sure, sir. So starting with the first question, so please can you tell us something more about your books, about your journey as an author, like what drives you to write?
Okay, so recently I had written. I have a blog called Chronicler, which is on WordPress. And recently, I had written a two-part article in it, which talks about 10 years to 2 days. That's the title of the article. It's called 10 years to 2 days. And in that article, I write about my journey in as a writer. So when my first book was written, I completed the first draft of my book sometime in 2007, 2008 of. And by the time I really got to publishing it, it was 2015, and it was a very long journey, almost about 7 8 years, in which and so from the time I started, which I started in 2005 to 2015, was a long 10-year journey. And that was the beginning of my journey as a writer. And for a startup writer, for a first time author, the world of writing is not very welcoming. It is it shuns you. It reads your manuscripts and says, "Oops, it's not good enough." So my manuscripts were rejected more times than I could remember. My first book is called Shatru. It's part of as you read out in my bio, in my profile. It's a part of a fantasy series, and of which it is a prequel to the actual series that's going to start. And it was not very welcome. Some publisher said, okay, he'll take a chance with me. They published the book, and I could have expected better, but then I was very happy that the book was out in the market. And even today, I get reviews 5 years down the line. I get reviews of the book, which compare it to world class writers and this and that. And it is simply the ultimate high for which an author lives. So that is 10 years it took for me to start my career as an author. And then the last book, the book that is going to come out in the market in sometime in April 2021, uh, was a book that I had written. And 2 days after I had submitted my manuscript to my agent, my publisher picked it up. So, from 10 years to 2 days is the title of the blog. And it really, to me, it is the most satisfying part of this journey because, from completely shunning an author for not, for the fact of being a new author, to having so much of a trust in your author that you pick up the book 2 days after he has written it, I think is a great step forward for anybody who is in the artistic line or who's in the writing line. So the basic lesson that I learned is do not give up. Keep fighting.
Surely, sir. That
Every
was
rejection for an author is a chance for him to improve his work. That's a simple thing.
surely, sir. I can imagine how pleasurable it must have been for you to be compared with world class authors coming from India, because English is something which is not seen as like the language which one should write in as in India. And being compared to world class authors, it must have given you a huge amount of pleasure. So, how was lockdown for you? Like, how did you cope up with the monotony of it?
I'm an author. I don't know what a lockdown is. I'm always on lockdown.
Yeah. Like what?
Going for work, unless I'm going for work and coming back. That's the only thing I do. Otherwise, I'm stuck in my room writing my books or thinking about new things to do with my career characters or thinking about killing them off. So, so I travel in my mind. I travel all over the world. I've traveled the world, and I can travel in my mind and pick up and do stuff. So lockdown really had no impact on me. But it is a good thing. The lockdown was a good thing, and I think it contained a lot of damage. And I think that was good. But for most people, for people who have to step out of every now and then, who have to go to a coffee shop or who have to, either even work outside, the lockdown must have been a real curse. But for people like us, for authors, painters, all the artistic people, the lockdown didn't make much difference. So, oh, there's a lockdown, great, wonderful. Oh, I didn't know that. So that was how it was for us. So I think that was the
Yeah, sir, I can truly relate because in this period only I found out that I really had a love for reading novels and stuff, and actually could devote time to it, because in studies and stuff you don't get much time to devote in such activities. So I got to know that I have a passion for it, and I started writing reviews and stuff in this lockdown only. So yeah, it proved to be instrumental in my journey.
Absolutely, that's great. That's great. I mean,
Yeah,
to a writer, what else is better news than it says that hey, there's a new reader out there. So
yeah,
it's a good thing. I mean, yeah. So the lockdown, I think, was very beneficial to a lot of people and to the planet as such. We gave the planet some time to recuperate. The
yeah, sure,
Yamuna
sir.
actually became clean in Delhi.
Yes.
Actually saw crystal clear blue water in the Yamuna during the lockdown. A lot of pollution got off. The planet was able to recover. At least our major cities were able to recover.
Yeah, yeah. Like
Yeah,
the pollution too came down in cities, metropolitan cities like Delhi and Mumbai, and it
absolutely,
was a great achievement for people, because for the government itself, because in normal times it wasn't. It was a great deal to cope up with that, with people going to and fro from different cities to their workplaces or to the offices. The shutting down of the cities does have a huge impact on the same topic. So
absolutely,
yes,
absolutely. You're absolutely right. And from a many angles. I mean, for example, we didn't know that we realized we don't need a lot of things. We
yeah.
realized we don't need to buy so many things. We realized that we could live life much more, frugally, much more economically. all the things that we thought, oh my God, if I don't go out and eat, and if I don't go to a bar or a pub, I'm going to kill myself. That entirely went out of the window, and we realized a lot of new things that we could do and use your time effectively.
Yeah, sure, sir.
So, yeah.
And moving towards the next question, I'm a mystery and thriller fanatic myself. I enjoy mysteries and I find them really engaging and really engrossing when it's fast paced. You just flow through it, flow through them. And I've read them to the point that half the times I figure out the plot twist when they are going to come. And what, in your opinion, makes your books different from all those who are out in the market?
Okay, so that is a very interesting question. I mean, seriously, I'm glad that you asked me that question. There are two, three things that I do. Okay, one, uh, I think that for an author, it is very important to have a very strong grasp of the language, especially when you're writing in English. And
Yeah,
English is not generally the language that people speak in this country.
yeah,
So at the end of the day, when you think in a different language and you want to translate or transliterate that into another language, you end up, really complifying or complicating the sentence formation part. So that's a first stumbling block for an uh, English writing Indian author. So I was lucky enough to have read a lot of books in my time. Basically, I'm a fiction fan, but I even read non-fiction. So I've read a lot of books in my life, and uh, and I've kind of picked out how or what would what I would want to read, what kind of what kind of a book I would want to read, what pace it should have, how should it be presented, and I feel that in today's context in India, uh, most Indian authors are able to communicate by telling and not showing. And an author must not tell his story, he must show his story. So, when I am writing a book, my reader should be able to run it as a movie in the head. Just like if you read a Lee Child book, or if you read a Robert Ludlum, or if you read any of the other books, what happens when you're reading the book is there's a movie running in your head. You see the characters, you see them interacting, you see the action sequences. So therefore, writing has to create that impact on you, that you're able to uh, picturize everything, visualize everything. And my effort in writing my books is to ensure that that happens, because I like to write the kind of book I like to read, right? Not a book that I want to tell what I want to tell, and I'm not showing anybody anything. So that's, I think, the biggest uh, differentiator between my books and books of other authors in the Indian in the English writing Indian author tribe that we have. Uh, Secondly, I have a varied interest in topics. So if you take, for example, Shatru. Shatru is a contemporary tale, that is today's tale. It's urban fantasy, as they call it, but it's not really an urban fantasy, because in fantasy you have a lot of subgenres. So you
yeah,
have urban fantasy, you have epic fantasy, you have young adult
yeah,
fantasy,
yeah.
right? So this is a combination of an urban fantasy and an epic fantasy, right? This is based on our own myth. And to me, when people start talking about Indian myths, there's only two things they rely on: Mahabharat, Ramayana.
And
Ramayana, Mahabharat. Beyond this, nobody wants to go. They want to take up characters in Mahabharat, they want to take up the storyline of Mahabharat, they don't want to go beyond that.
yeah,
So, Shatru is about the stories that come out in the Upanishads. Shatru is about the stories that are woven here in Hindu subsects. Okay, so I have taken something which is for example, Garuda Puran, right? So
yes,
therefore, I have taken a lot of these Indian myths which are not really explored, and I have brought them together as an urban fantasy which is happening in the current day, based on asuras and devas and stuff like that. So that is Shatru, and that is only a prequel to my fantasy series that is yet to come. If you look at Agniputr, Agniputr has fantasy, it has horror, it has science fiction, it has quantum physics, it has politics, it has law. So so Agniputra is a multi-genre book. And it's a thriller, basically.
Yeah.
Okay, so that is what Agniputra is. Now, if you look at Fear of God, it's complete out and out mystery thriller where it is based on corruption, it's based on vigilantism, it's based on the current Indian polity, and it creates an alternate scenario of what happens when the law breaks down. Right? So I'm looking at approaching different topics and expressing my opinion and what I think is important in different areas that we are looking at, and thereby giving a point of view for my readers in terms of thinking. At the end of the day, my books are thrillers. My books are meant to entertain. There is no
Yeah.
two ways about it. I am not here to preach anything, but there is a lesson in that if you want to learn it, and
Yeah,
that is
sure.
entirely up to the reader. So I guess these are my differentiating parts, the differentiating factors as a writer.
Yes, sir. I truly agree that there is a scope for Upanishads and other epics from India to be explored, because most of the authors have explored those, and people like us who are in this generation, we are the youth, we don't really look towards reading those Upanishads, but actually retelling or modern, or those Upanishads in a modern setting which we can relate to more.
Absolutely.
Yeah. So, sir, my next question is, there are always some funny instances or situations that lead or inspire us to write some of the most serious tropes. So, tell us some fun factoids about writing a mystery series. Like, there is always something that you take from a funny instance and portrays as the most serious one.
Uh, so it's actually been the other way around for me. I take something which is more serious and then I turn it around to being something funny. Right?
It's
So
both ways, sir.
so I think I have done that. I have done that, and I have taken something which, for example, well, I think basically when I'm okay, so uh, Agniputr, if you look at it, I mean, I don't know if this answers your question, but this is true. So Agniputra was a story that came to me in a nightmare. Okay,
Yeah.
and I woke up screaming uh, as a result of that nightmare happening. Now Agniputra is a story that talks about something evil that is under uh, the foundations of a very old castle in a very remote village. And my dream was that I am stuck in the cellar of that castle, right?
Yeah.
And the window of that cellar is at the ground level. And I'm just able to hold on to that window and look outside. It's pitch dark. And in the very distance, long distance away, there are a bunch of bullock carts which are going with lanterns stuck to them. So I'm able to see the bullock carts, and I know that there's something behind me, something evil. And the moment I turn around, I'm dead. Now, this was a repetitive nightmare that I used to get as a child.
Okay. That's very interesting, sir. And
And,
according to
and
me,
I,
like I have,
yeah, go ahead.
yes, sir, please continue, sir.
No. So that actually prompted me to write a book when I was about 12 years old. So I thought that I should, get that out. By the
Yeah.
time I was writing poetry, I was writing short stories. So I thought, okay, let me write this as a full-fledged book. I had just started reading uh, Robert Ludlum. I had read his first book. And the book that really inspired me today to become a writer is The Matry Circle by Robert Ludlum. So I thought, okay, now I'm all pepped up and this nightmare keeps coming to me. I should get it out of my system. So let me write. I wrote, but I did not have the ability to complete the book at that point of time. And much later, when I found that book again from when I was 12 years old, and I picked it up, and it was titled Agniputr even then, I opened it, and of course, I've completed that story. And that's the story that's out there today in the thing. So, well, that is my example of looking at how something that was very scary to me, which is very something that scared the bejesus out of me most of the nights when I used to sleep, is something that is now become a bestseller and has become something that I am happy about. That I'm able to complete the book, and it was a book that was published by none less than Bloomsbury, and it was their first fantasy fiction for India that they had published this. So it was something great for me that this book got picked up by such a prestigious publishing house, and this came out of a nightmare which I had when I was 12 years old. So that, I think, is the example I can give you about how something that I had converted into something that I came out with. Of course, Agniputr
Yes,
has. Yeah,
yes, I truly believe that whatever is in our subconscious gets converted into our dreams, and whatever is in our subconscious is the most potential that we have as a writer or as an imaginator, or anything we want to create is what we have in our subconscious, but we could not get it back into conscious because we have other things going inside our mind. So that's what helps us to be creative and to bring out what is the most potential in ourselves.
absolutely, absolutely. Sometimes we even forget. So
Yeah,
what that I completely slipped my mind that I used to write poetry and stops and short stories as a kid when I grew up and when I moved on and when I got my job and I started working and I got married and I had children. Everything is forgotten. Now, after my children grew to a certain level, to a certain age where I could tell them stories, I started telling them stories. And that kind of rekindled oh my God, I used to do this when I was a kid. And then my kids grew up to a level where they didn't want to hear my stories anymore. I was left with my stories. I didn't know what else to do. So I published them. So that's how the journey as an author came about to be. So you're right. It's inside, and it's up to us to tap that energy
yeah,
and pull it out. And that is actually a superpower.
yeah.
And
It's
everybody
just to
has one.
step out and just present it to the world, whatever you have, because it
And
just
the
takes courage.
scary part is most people get scared about projecting it to the world. They feel scared about criticism. They feel scared about so many things. My advice is, don't care. Don't be. This is you. This is your work. This is your dream. And
Yeah.
I think that you have a right to showcase it to the world. Now, it's up to the world to accept it or not, right?
I can truly relate to that because when I first started writing reviews, I was very skeptical whether people would accept me as a reviewer or would actually have my opinion as something that can affect their reading habits or something like that. But then it just came to my mind, like, why not give it a shot? Just try it for some time, even if it doesn't work out, I'll stop. What's the way in just starting? So
Absolutely.
that's, yeah, so I absolutely agree with the point. And so, as your book is soon to be adapted as a motion film, how does all this got started? Like, how were you approached by someone, or you approached someone? Like, what was the process behind it?
So just like there, I have a literary agent. Okay. So he takes my books to my publishers. Same way, I have a movie adaptation agent. Okay, and he's a pretty resourceful guy. And I so for the promotion for the launch of Fear of God, I had invited my both my literary agent and my movie adaptation agent to be the panelists. So we had a panel discussion for the launch in Mumbai, and first, and then in Delhi second. Both of them were grand successes. In Mumbai, my agents came, and then in Delhi, my publisher came, and we were it was very successful launches. And the Mumbai launch, so I gave my book to my adaptation agent as well. So during the launch, he came after the launch was over. He congratulated me for the book, and he said that, hey, this is going to be made a movie. Don't worry about it. I said, because I was trying for Agniputr and that never really happened. And so I asked him, what's the difference? Because Agniputr is also it's a damn good book. And why did this? I'm telling you as an adaptation agent, I know which book will sell and which will not sell in the movie adaptation business. This will sell, right? So my book was released on January 30th, and by March I think March 15th or March 20th, uh, the within a month of the book coming in, or within 2-3 months of the book coming in, it was signed up for a movie adaptation. And it's
Oh,
going to
wow.
be, and what my producer says, is going to be a Hindi. It's not going to be the OTT platform. It's going to be a motion picture. So since now, because of COVID, everything is, they're also a little laid back and they're working there, doing stuff. I think, and it's good because they can just really plan. Fear of God is it's a book with a lot of twists and turns, and you really need a good scriptwriter for you to actually move it from the literary field to the movie adaptation field. So it's working. Work is going on, and thrilled. Absolutely. I mean, it's a dream come true for me that my first book I was desperately trying to get it published. My third book is going to be made into movies. It's a nice thing.
Yeah, it must feel so much pleasure and happiness. And it must have been an achievement for you coming from a non-literary background and having your third book being adapted as a movie. So yeah.
Yeah,
So
it's a thrill. It's a high. So I'm living my dream.
yeah, sure, sir. And as you know that writing thrillers include blood, gore, and murders, so what is your target audience in regards to the tropes you write about? Like the tropes, does they include the Indian setup or the setup which is in different countries like England or other stuff, other abroad countries?
So I think that the Indian perspective has got a lot of prospect to it. You can really explore that. It's a myth to think that for a big mystery novel to succeed, you will have to have exotic locations. We'll leave that to the movies. So when you're writing, you don't really have to worry about that. There is so much you can explore in the Indian context in terms of writing. So if you're looking at Shatru is a fantasy fiction, but it happens in Gurgaon, right? It happens in Gurugram now.
Yeah.
Happens in Gurugram. Happens There is New York City in that, and it also happens in a completely different world that I had built for that particular book. So, and if you're looking at Agniputr, it happens in uh, again Gurugram. It happens in a very remote village in Andhra Pradesh. It happens in Jaipur, Rajasthan, right? So it happens in different parts of India. And because I have traveled not only outside the country, but within the country in the course of my professional work, I have a flavor of how these things are, where they function, how they function. And therefore I was able to pull out that. And therefore, for a murder mystery, what's important is to keep your reader, guessing.
Yeah.
The locales are an added benefit. They are only, a fringe benefit, so to speak. It really doesn't hinge on which location you're writing on. I mean, you can write about a murder mystery in a village,
Yeah.
in the Swiss Alps, or in the Himalayas, or in a city. You can write. So the whole point is that you have to keep your readers guessing about what's going to happen next. And okay, so as far as gore is concerned, as far as bloodshed is concerned, uh, if you look at the way I've written Fear of God, there's a lot of that in that because the story demanded it. The story demanded that the vigilante has to be that gory for him to get the attention of the people he wanted to attract. Right now, if you're looking at Agniputr, you're looking at a certain level of thrills, a certain level of fighting, and a certain level of violence, but not to the level at which I have taken it to Fear of God. Now, the next book that's coming that I've written is about. Okay, so I can't tell you the name of the book, etc., because of the publishing contract, but it's a thriller based on Indian temples.
Oh,
and
sounds
and, and yeah, so the violence levels there is much lesser, and it is a much more light-hearted thriller that I have written there. So basically, all of that depends on your topic, what you choose to write.
I
Okay, so
truly
if you're
agree
right,
with that, sir, because most of the foreign writers are also including Indian characters in their Indian novels. Like you can take A Good Girl's Guide to Murder. The second lead is an
Yeah.
Indian who is living abroad. So there is something Indians have
My
that.
my yeah, absolutely. My next book, the book that's going to be released now, has two American characters and a Russian character who are very centrifugal to the book. They're there throughout. So yes, and it is good that we include these characters, but it is also very important when you see basically when the Western writers write a book, right? The one thing I have seen in the way they write their book is their ability to write in such a way that you are able to understand the accent of the character.
Yeah.
So when a Russian or a German speaks, you are able to you read the sentence in the way it is formed, and you are able to understand it's a German speaking. So because an American, a Russian, an Indian, and a German can't speak the same way.
Yeah, yeah.
Their sentence formation, everything is different. Everything about the way they use the words is different. And when you're using say lingual characters, right, or global characters, if you can call them that, then you will also have to be very careful about how they write, what words they choose,
Yeah.
how their reactions are, right? And that becomes very critical for the audience to get a feel, the reader to get a feel that he's actually there and is hearing that character talk, and that's important. That's also important for you when you're writing in that
Yes,
context.
I truly agree with that because whenever you read that character, you should feel that he is an Indian. He has that temperament. He has that language. He has that thinking. Because
Correct.
we Indians have a different temperament when it comes to foreign characters and foreign situations or certain situations, how we deal with that. It's just different from people, how they perceive the situations outside India.
Absolutely, absolutely.
So moving on to next question, what advice would you like to give to Indian authors that are writing in English language?
Please have a please have the first thing you have to do is please improve your vocabulary. Your vocabulary is your armory. It is your they are your weapons, and the more weapons, more bullets you have in your weapons, the more you're able to shoot the enemy, right? If you have a very limited vocabulary, the result of that is you keep repeating the words. And the moment you start repeating the words, your sentences become convoluted and complex. And it is difficult for the reader to then follow the track and read it. The more you know words, the lesser will be the complexity of your sentence formation. That's the first and most important thing for a writer, that your vocabulary should be very, very extensive. You can't have a short vocabulary and expect to be a writer. So the only way you can do that, and I have done it, the way I have done it is I can only tell you about the way I did it, is to read and apply context to the words that you're reading. If you read a dictionary, you can open a dictionary and mug up all the words, but it won't apply to you. You must have a context to the way
Yeah.
what you're doing and what you're reading. So even reading a newspaper from front page to the last page and understanding the language there would be the first step in understanding and developing the language that you have. One, two, you must be able to learn to show your reader and not tell your reader. Telling a reader is something that is done in a thesis,
Yeah.
something that you do in writing a newspaper, or in the newspaper say this is what happened, this is what happened, this is what happened, and that is telling you. But an author needs to showcase, which means that you have to explore the situation. You will have to explain what is the surrounding background. You have to explain what the characters feel, and therefore what they say. Therefore, you have to show it, and that's very important. And most Indian writers in English fail to understand that. The third point is do not make matchstick characters. Matchstick characters kill books. Your characters must have life. You must fluff them out, right? Because a reader reads a book from the perception of a character, right? I am reading the book from the eyes of the hero, from the eyes of the villain, from the eyes of the comedian, from the eyes of the heroine. And if they don't convince you, if you don't, you know, if you are unable to meet them eye to eye, if you're unable to connect with them, then their point of view has no relevance for you. You don't care what happens to the book. You don't care what happens to the characters. So it's very important that you fluff up your characters and you create a backstory for your characters. You create them as lifelike as possible, giving them human feelings, human pain, and the human rigmarole that we go through, so that your readers are able to either laugh with them or laugh at them,
Yeah.
walk with them or walk against them. Therefore, they are able to take a viewpoint vis-a-vis the character, and that's very important because then your characters drive the story, right? You remember,
Truly, truly agree.
just to give you an example, do you remember, uh, what do you remember Arthur Conan Doyle for the character of Sherlock Holmes? What do you remember Agatha Christie for the character of
Point.
Hercule Poirot? Right? What do you remember Lee Child for Jack Reacher? We don't know what happened in each of the stories of Jack Reacher. We don't. I can't remember every story of Sherlock Holmes, but the character, the fact that the character is there, drives me to buy the book. So the most important part of an author's armory when he writes his book is to develop that character and create a certain life to it, and then your book will be a success. It's because your readers will then either love the character or hate the character, and therefore form a point of view about your book. That's my advice. I don't know if it's too complicated, but that's the best I can do.
But that, so if even if it's complicated, it's the advice that most of the writers should adhere to and should apply, because this is what actually is needed to they need to improve in their writing, and what they have to inculcate in their writing as well.
Absolutely.
So moving towards the next question, when it's a misconception that one of your book does well, you tend to write similar content or in the same genre just to play safe, just so that people like you. Do you try to be more original or to deliver to readers what they expect?
Okay, so I guess I'm the exception to the rule, basically because my three books are completely different from each other. Shatru is a full-fledged fantasy fiction. Agniputr is a multi-genre, and Fear of God is based on corruption and vigilantism. So all three are completely different from each other, and I don't think that I will let success drive me towards kind of repeating the kind of work that I do, having the work that I do. Okay, so that would not. I will always write thrillers. I don't know to write anything else. Maybe I'll write horror. Maybe I'll write. So I'm now attempting my first comedy thriller. It's based on a pair of investigators, and it's a comedy thriller. So I will always try something. It'll always be in the thriller genre, or it'll be in a fantasy genre. But I will always look at bringing in different subjects,
Yeah.
because I think that otherwise nothing else happens. Otherwise, you are stagnating as an author, and you will also let your readers will lose interest in you as an author. Basically, you have to keep creating your own perspective and point of view, and that's important. So my
So
three
I,
books have been completely different from each other.
yes, because under the same umbrella of thrillers or mystery, there are many other topics to explore and to bring to notice of other people. Because not thrillers can be romantic thrillers can be comedic thrillers. So there are many more to explore on this in under the same umbrella of thrillers.
Correct, absolutely. So you can do anything. I mean, you can have a thriller which is a family story,
Yeah,
right?
because there are so
You can
many
have a
other.
thriller. You can have a thriller which is a sob story. You can have a thriller which is a failed love story. The fact of the matter is that there is an underlying thrill aspect to it that will ultimately take over the book's main story, right? So,
Truly so. So, sir, do you believe that our ancient Indian literature has a lot of potential? So, retelling it from modern perspective, do you think will it attract current and next generation towards it? Like you said before that Upanishad, you wrote you took up the character from an Upanishad rather than from Mahabharata or Ramayana. So do you see yourself writing more about them in the future?
Agnir, Ekaksharena, Vakum, Ud, Ajayat is the single line which is the first line of victory in the Yajurveda. Agnir, huh? What it means is Agni with one syllable, one sound. One syllable is ONE, one sound is WON, one sound. That is the one line out of the Yajurveda, the first line of incantation. And that line became a book called Agniputra. The entire mystery of that book is to solve the definition or the meaning of this Agni with one syllable, one sound. And if you look at the cover of Agniputra, it also says there's a subtitle which says Agniputra when Agni first spoke.
Yeah.
Right? With one syllable, he one sound. How did he do that? And what is the relevance? What is the meaning of that? With Agni with one syllable, he used one syllable to win sound. So how did he do? So therefore, the amount of possibilities that throws up to you as a thinker, as an author, in terms of what all you can do with that just one sentence out of an Hindu Purana, a Veda, is simply mind-boggling. If you look at the amount of literature we have and how we can utilize it, it's simply out of the world. I mean, to me, I'm in love with the Rig Veda. Of course, I can't read Sanskrit, so I read the English version of it. Right? Now, the Rig Veda, the book that's going to come out now in April, has got a lot of the Rig Veda in it. So the mysteries that have to be solved as a result of deciphering what the Rig Veda means, those particular verses mean. So it's amazing to think that the amount of work that you can pull out of the amount of information you can pull out of the ancient literature. There's a South Indian sect called Ayyavari. They are in between the Kerala and South Indian border and the Tamil Nadu border. They are a 18th century sect that came out of Hinduism, and they came out with their own literature in terms of the avatars made by Vishnu, right? And they said that Vishnu did not take 10 avatars. In fact, Vishnu took only 6 avatars. Right? How many of us know that? How many of us know that there is some literature which actually redefines their Dasavatar in India? And they spoke about a villain, a supreme villain that Vishnu had to destroy in each of these 6 yugas. Right? In the Dasavatar, Vishnu comes in as an avatar to create a certain awareness among the people and to show a way of life. According to the Ayyavari, he came to destroy evil all these 6 times, completely different from each other. I mean, yeah, Ramayana had Ravana, but Ravana was not centrifugal. Ramayana was about how an ideal man should live.
Yeah.
Mahabharata had Krishna, but the fact is that Krishna told you how a practical man should live, and that is Bhagavad Gita. Right? These are all lessons that they're teaching you. But these guys say that there is no forget all the lessons. He came to destroy an evil and end of the matter. So I took that as an aspect of my book of Shatru. And the other books that are going to flow out of Shatru in the near future. So therefore, there is a tremendous amount of knowledge in India as far as the ancient texts go, as far as the ancient ideas go, and there is a tremendous amount of work that we can do in understanding them and giving them a modern interpretation.
I truly agree, sir, because there is so much so much is unexplored, and there is so much explored. Even we can't summarize it in one or two or like hundreds of novels itself. Because if we take one disciple from one disciple for one book, it can make a library of books for to summarize that whole intention of Vedas or Puranas and stuff like
and
that.
Each time you read them, they come out with a different interpretation. That's the best part.
Yes, sir. It
When you
truly
read them the
depends
first
when you
time,
are reading it at what stage of life.
it depends on what stage of life you're reading it and what experiences you've gone through. And those experiences also give you a flavor of what they mean. So there is so much of depth in them. And this depth you can go on exploring and go on learning, even if you read them for the 10th time or the 100th time or the 1000th time. Each time they come out with a different meaning, which has a lot more impact on your life.
Yes, sir. So, moving towards the next question, in one of your interviews, when asked about your thoughts on saving nature, you said that don't cut any more trees. I absolutely support the cause. What, according to you, is the future of ebooks and digital print media in this digital era? Because I myself try to stick to ebooks rather than having paperbacks or physical books to read, because it does not only provide you a way to decrease pollution and decrease the cutting down of trees, but also provides you a way to have many books in a lot smaller area.
Yes. So okay. So here is the full thing of what I said. I said plant don't cut trees anymore, and plant more trees than you cut. There is something in fear of God where I say that you our life is like a hotel room. Okay. So imagine that there is no room service or there is no housekeeping services in a hotel. You take a room, you finish the work, and there is a housekeeping service which comes and clears up all the dirt that you created in your room so that the next guest can come in. If you don't have that housekeeping, once you go out of the house of the hotel and the next guest comes, right? What kind of a hotel room will he find himself in? So we have to restore the world that we are using before we give it to the next generation, and that is my idea. So if you're cutting trees because you can't help it, then you have to plant. For each tree you cut, you have to plant 10 more. Right? Okay. If you ask me, I am a paperback reader. I'm old school. I like to buy my book and read it and smell the paper. But you can make synthetic paper. Right? It's not necessary that
Yeah,
you have to
I
cut
do
wood for it.
have some. Yeah, I do have some paperback copies, but I try to restrict myself to ebooks because as much as I can read in an ebook format, I think it also fastens my speed as of reading, talking of reading and stuff.
Absolutely, absolutely. It's a good thing. I mean, yeah, I'm a nature lover and I'm a dog lover, right? So I have three dogs at home. Two of them are our own Indian dogs, and one is a dog that is also an Indian dog, but it is a mix of an Indian dog and a German Shepherd. Uh, and and so I love plants. I love trees. Uh, I love to be in the mountains or by the sea, and I'm a nature lover. And it breaks my heart to see trees being cut. See, doing it for necessity is different. Animals kill each other for necessity, for hunger. They don't kill each other for sport. We are the only race or the only species on this planet who kill each other for sport, who box each other for sport, who try to cheat each other for sport because we want more money in the bank. That's not correct. So I mean, we are
Is there a
as someone said, in the evolutionary cycle, we are bad code. We have a mind that keeps probing. We have a mind that only asks questions. We don't have answers for most of the questions that we ask. So we are always a species that is lost and trying to find itself. If you look at it as a human species, right? We are the only species in this planet which have to write codified laws to protect us from us, right? The laws of the jungle are not codified; they are not written anywhere. So the animals follow them. We are the only people who say that we have to create laws that protect us from whom? Not from the animals, not from extraterrestrials, not from demons, from ourselves. So we are a very confused species, right? We don't know what we really want.
yeah?
We have to protect the planet from
That's the
ourselves.
irony, sir. We are the most. Yeah, we are the most developed from as of mental capacities, but we are the most confused.
That's a result of
So
a most developed mind, the result of a developed mind or a developing mind.
yes, so moving towards the next question. It is often seen that authors tend to be sensitive when it comes to the reviews of their book. Do you read them? Like, do you like to read
Every review,
reviews of your own books?
I read every single review, and yeah. So the reviews that I get, the 5-star reviews, I guess I'm happy with them. The 4 stars, I'm happy. Third stars, I'm happy. 2 stars, I'm not happy. 1 star, I hate. But the 2 stars are the 1 stars that make me a better writer, not the 4 stars.
I truly agree with that because the criticism is what makes us improve on our
Sometimes,
flaws and
correct. Sometimes the criticism is unnecessary. Sometimes the criticism is constructive.
yeah.
So I like to look at criticism constructively, understand what the person is saying, and then say, okay, let me work on that and improve that. I think that works because ultimately, I mean, my journey as an author has been the foundation for that has been rejection, right? So the more people rejected me, the more I fine tuned my skill set to write. So same is true of criticism. The 1 stars and the 2 stars, if they say something which has a certain level of genuineness in it, I'd be happy to accept it. But when people start, they don't understand what I've written and they criticize it, then I can't help that. So I just let it go.
Sure, sir. So moving towards the last question from this session, is writing a good career to choose? What, according to you, are the possibilities one can look for in this line?
Good career, uh, no. Uh, Good second career, maybe yes. Passion, definitely. In the West, writers have a lot of traction. They hold a lot of the reins with them. They get paid well, right? The publishing houses even do the promotions for them. In India, a writer doesn't get paid well at all unless you belong to that 1.1% or 2% who is a big political figure, an actor, or somebody like that who writes a book about himself. Then people buy, and then you get paid a royalty. Otherwise, you have to. It's a struggle, uh, and it's a constant struggle. So you must have a backup career if you're going to be a writer. And writing is something that you can only do during spare time, unless you are an extremely rich person. You've got ancestral properties and you're getting crores of rupees from them. In that case, you can happily go and sit down and write. But if not, you have to you have to really work hard at being a writer. It was like the great artists and painters of the 18th century or the 17th century, like your Picassos and your Rembrandts and stuff. They never really made it big in their time. Their portraits are being sold for billions of dollars or millions of dollars today. But when they made them and sold them, they was hardly worth a few coins, right? So the same for writing. J.R.R. Tolkien's Lord of the Rings was written in 1932. Can you imagine? Or 1930s at least. Can you imagine? And today it's still a hotbed. It's still something that people love to read. And movies are being, and now they are making an OTT on it. They are making a series on it, on the Lord of the Rings. So writing is a long time project. You're not going to earn any money. If you think that you're going to write a book today and tomorrow it's a bestseller, in India, bestseller is when you sell 2,500 books. Okay, so let us work the math. Your book is worth $250, right? Out of that, as an author, you get 10%, which is 25 rupees. Into 2,500 books, how much is it?
25,000. I'm not that good
So,
at
neither am I. So, no, but it's not a fortune. right? It's
Yeah,
not a fortune.
obviously.
25 rupees into 2,500 books
Six,
is about
6 lakh 25,000.
something. What are you going to do with that? You can't buy a decent car with that, yeah, right?
Yes, sir.
So therefore, the concept of a bestseller itself is a little difficult in India, right? So it is more of a passion, right? If you're lucky, you have Amish Tripathi like people who, with his first three books and the amazing amount of marketing he did, he made crores of rupees, right? Over a period of 5-10 years, right? But that is how many people? Uh, One, right? And there's nobody to compare him with. So that's the whole point. So basically, what I'm going to tell you is that you want to write because you have an urge to write. Right in India, you publish your book. If you have a name, you have a name. That's great, right? If your book is adapted to be a movie, you get a few lakhs of rupees. Enjoy it. Write your next one, and leave it there because it's not really a full time career. Okay, and don't make it a full time career. Yes, you can if you've retired, if you've got a lot of money, and you can spend time writing and going and doing a lot of things other than, then sure, go ahead and do that. Nobody's stopping you. You must have a backup income, is all I'm saying. Yeah.
Sure, so. So it was a pleasure talking to you, having you here among us. Now would like to hand it over to Paki. Paki.
Thank you so much, Nirmiti. Thank you so much, sir, for being here and being a part of this particular session. It was a pleasure having you here, and we look forward to have you once again. In fact, many more times on our platform. It was a very good experience. Thank you, sir, for providing us with your insight on writing. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Paki, for giving me the opportunity. I wish you all success in your endeavors and with the current Lit Fest, and hope you're able to do much more than this in the future. And
Yes,
I'll be
definitely.
happy to be a part of it. All the best. Thank you so much for having me.